Hey, family, welcome back. It's been a minute. I guess like about I don't know, 20 minutes since you last see me on screen. It's a special weekend. We have a lot happening in the Black community, and I'm proud to be able to uh, be here and talk to this esteemed brother who's done the work since 2005. And I followed them on MySpace days. Uh, Dr. Deforest Soaries is joining us, and he is a representative of a project that I am excited to be a part of also, the Summer of Healing, which is being empowered by Heal America. You can find him on, you can find the project on Instagram at Join Heal America. Dr. Desoris, can can you tell us, describe for us this movement and some of the points that will be happening this weekend, specifically for Juneteenth?
Yeah, thank you, Martin. And first, let me thank you for having me today. And secondly, let me thank you for what you do. A lot of people that have your technical skills use them for frivolous subject matter or use them simply for self promotion or commercial purposes. But what you've done is mastered the art of using technology for the purpose of promoting ideas that matter, provoking important conversations. We don't all agree on everything, but we should have an opportunity to have conversations. And then, most importantly, advocating for activities that make an impact. So I just want to thank you because I never dreamt I'd live to see the day when the telephone would be a camera and the camera would be primarily focused on the holder of the camera, you know. But thank God for these cameras. We wouldn't know about George Floyd were it not for a camera, and these cameras have proven to become uh, important tools in our toolkit of Black empowerment and freedom. So I know you didn't ask me for all that, but let me just let me say that I was a pastor for 30 years at First Baptist Church in Central Jersey, and during those 30 years, what I tried to do was not only help people prepare for their eternal destiny, but also help people live productive lives right now, and also leverage the resources of our church to bring about revitalization in the neighborhood around our church. And so, in a word, my ministry has always focused on solutions, identifying problems, but then working towards some solution to that specific problem. And having said that, I met some young people some years ago from Dallas, Texas, led by the late Bishop Omar Jawar, a young minister who was working with gangs. He was working with Crips and Bloods. He was bringing about reconciliation between them. He was working in prisons. He was the first official state hired gang intervention specialist in the state of Texas. And what Omar did was bring people together and show them, like many people around this country, show them how much they have in common, and show them the uselessness in the kind of violence that ended up with them just killing each other. Well, fast forward, Omar died last year from COVID, but before he died, he moved around to 6 different cities. He put together something called the Heal America Tour. And that tour sought to identify people in cities, cities, Minneapolis, Chicago, Atlanta, Dallas, and a few other cities. And the whole point was there were 2 points. One point was to bring together victims and victimizers for some semblance of reconciliation. And so, for instance, in one city, there was a woman whose child was brutally murdered by police. And then on stage next to her was a woman whose husband was a police officer who had been killed in retaliation to police brutality. And these women came together in public and they hugged and they identified their futures and how much they have in common. And so what Omar said was if I could bring Crips and Bloods together to seek peace, then maybe I could bring Democrats and Republicans, blacks and whites, rich and poor. So he had this Heal America tour, and then he had the unfortunate um, experience of dying from COVID. Well, in the meantime, Omar developed some support for the concept of the Heal America tour and Heal America type activities. And I was a mentor to Omar and an advisor to his strategy. And so his funders came to me and said, listen, we really would like to continue this vision and support it, but we need some strategic help, and we'd like your advice on what we can do. And so I told him, I said, look, Omar was unique. Omar was dynamic, but there are like little Omars around the country who are doing great work. They're not covered by mainstream media. Many of them are in some of the most dangerous neighborhoods in the country. They're doing groundbreaking work. And interestingly, Martin, the two things I find about these young people: one, that they understand that it takes a relationship with the police to both help tame the police. I mean, you can't talk the police into changing. You got to kind of get close enough to them to help them change. And on the other hand, reduce the likelihood of violence in the neighborhood, because we need police, but we need police that we don't fear. And we need communities, but we need communities that are safe. I mean, just this past weekend, there was a shooting in Los Angeles at young people at a party. We have so much violence in our neighborhoods now, it normally doesn't even make news. So Heal America is a campaign that I proposed to Omar's funders. And I said, listen, why don't we do a summer of healing? Why don't we find people in neighborhoods who are working from different perspectives on the problem of police community relations and community violence? Let's find them. Let's see if we can get them some resources. Let's document what they do. Let's connect them to each other. And so we found 43 such organizations in 18 cities. And on Sunday, on Juneteenth, we're going to launch this summer of healing. And hopefully we will reduce the violence that otherwise would happen, because we know acts of violence spike in the summertime. We'll document some of the causes of violence and come up with strategies based on the work being done, not PhDs in a laboratory thinking creatively, but I'm talking about young. In some instances, we have programs being run by people who had been in jail. In Dallas, we have a young man who was the founder of the Bloods in Dallas. In Pittsburgh, there's a young man who was shot 6 times in his back by the police and hated the police. And now he's working with the police chief to try to correct the problems there. So it's very exciting. I'm happy to be a part of it. I call myself like a senior advisor, senior because I'm old, and advisor because I'm not doing the work anymore. But I think they call me the co-chair or chair or whatever of the movement. But it's going to be fascinating. It reminds me so much of the kind of young leadership we had back in the days of SNCC and the civil rights movement. But these young people are unsung heroes, and more importantly, they are creating solutions in our communities that I think will be instructive for the whole country.
First of all, I'd say that that's phenomenal. Visionary. It's interesting you talk about mentees, and similar feeling I have, to being a parent, and it's the worst thing you can have when you lose your child. They say, if a person goes through that, you hear the term, you're not supposed to outlive your children. And when you have a mentee like you had, definitely turn my phone down.
Yeah.
You don't want to outlive your mentees. Like your goal for your mentees is they're part of your legacy. So I feel your pain on that. I lost a mentee to COVID in last year, and it was a phenomenal newspaper editor in Atlanta. And these, I just gotta say, because I'm still in pain, I guess, but the way that they wrote about him, his death, it was heartbreaking because he wrote that he was found alone. Like, there's certain words people use when they describe your death. And it was
Yeah.
like he wasn't alone. The reason why we found him as quick as we found him because 14 people were like, "Hey, we ain't seen him in 24 hours." So he wasn't
Right.
alone. But anyway,
Right. Right.
so I can commiserate and understand. And at the same time, you have these great mentees, that you pour into, and they create these great tapestry of ideas and stuff. And it's phenomenal that you pick the mantle up and continue his work, so no one will forget Omar, and Omar's legacy will stand. You know, and definitely got a comment in there. Sister Elise says hello, Dr. Soaries. Um, she is Alicia is somebody phenomenal there in Jersey, and
Hello, ma'am.
doing
No
all
doubt.
doing all the good
Yeah.
work.
Yeah. Our church has, I retired last summer, but the church has a tremendous reach, not only throughout New Jersey, but almost every time I travel somewhere, I bump into one of my former church members. Uh, and yeah, I have two sons. They're 32, I think. They're 32 years old. And I told my church, I told everybody, my main prayer in life is that I don't have to bury one of my sons. And then my second prayer is that I hope I don't have to bury either one of them because of violence. Because if someone were to mess with my sons or someone were to harm my wife, I'm not sure I would be able to behave in a way that is consistent with Christian principles. So I'm just praying that I never get tested. But Omar was a great guy. Omar's mentee was Anton Lucky, who was the founder of the Blood Street Gang in Dallas. He was sentenced to jail. When Anton was sentenced, the judge called him a menace to society. And Anton was only about 17 years old. He's written a great book now called Redemptive Activism. And Anton plus Leon Ford, who was the brother from Pittsburgh who got shot 6 times, they will be visiting all 18 of these cities, making appearances and giving speeches and motivating young people because both of them represent kind of the embodiment of the principles that we care about. So many young people need to understand that although they make mistakes like Anton, or although they are victims like Leon, they don't have to stay where they are. They don't have to remain stuck in the category that society puts them in, that they can get past there, they can outgrow there and turn around and become major influencers. Unfortunately, the word influencer today has a tendency to be restricted to models and athletes and millionaires. But the truth of the matter, Martin, is that like you, everyday people everybody influences somebody. And the question is, are you willing to take your influencer role seriously and then use these kinds of platforms to amplify it so that people you don't even know can be influenced by your genius, by your creativity, by your passion or compassion?
Yes, absolutely. And the one caveat to all that is that this generation that I think appears today is appearing with all these different tools that you and I didn't have generationally. But the but part is that those tools are influenced by an algorithm that ignores blackness.
Ah,
And these algorithms, and actually it penalizes blackness. Many people have said, I tried to take a Facebook ad out about Juneteenth, and it got nowhere because Facebook blocked the ad that said this content may be, whatever they love to say.
yeah,
And
I had a beef with Facebook. I had a big beef with Facebook. We were promoting on Facebook and paying for it events that were aimed at helping Black people with their finances, and very specific because there are financial challenges that Black people have that disproportionately affect Black people and not other people. All right. And Facebook will not accept our money to promote our ads. We were talking about improving your credit score. We were talking about investing. And I wrote back to Facebook and I said this. I said, listen, you're accusing us of being discriminatory by prioritizing Black people. Understand, if you jump in a if you're in a swimming pool and 9 people are swimming and one person is drowning, and you help the one person that's drowning, you're not discriminating against the 9 that are drowning. You're focusing on providing help where help is needed. And I won the battle because they have, I guess it's algorithms or robots. I don't know what it is, but as soon as they see certain words, to your point, they block your message. And I'm saying that if these platforms that benefit from Black people, because we are oversubscribers to social media. So if we are the dominant subscribers, and those of us that have solutions for Black people can't promote those solutions to Black people, that's a double jeopardy, double discrimination reality, and we've got to deal with that. Martin, where'd you go? Well, let's see if Martin's coming back. If Martin is not coming back, let me just tell you that you can reach me on social media. All of my social media, from SoundCloud to Twitter to TikTok, is at DB Soaries. You can see it right here on the screen, at DB Soaries. That is my social media identity. And so you can go to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I think I'm probably posting on Instagram more than I am the other platforms. It's the easiest one to understand. But we're there. We're promoting Heal America and the Summer of Healing. We're promoting the celebration of Juneteenth. Every day this week, I'm posting video that gives a suggestion on how we should celebrate Juneteenth. First of all, I start by saying we should celebrate Juneteenth, and Black people should be proud that it's a national holiday, as long as it's not used so commercially that it loses its definition. But the end of the enslavement of our people should be something that the entire country understands and celebrates. And then I talk about Juneteenth from the perspective of family, because the most devastating impact of slavery on our people was the disruption and the violation of our family life. And right after Juneteenth, June 19th, 1865, one of the first priorities for those who were enslaved was the reuniting of families. That's why family reunions are so big among Black people. And then the next day, I promoted the idea that we should support one Black business during Juneteenth, because if every Black business got enough support to hire just one Black person, it would significantly increase our wealth and decrease our unemployment. The new data says that the unemployment rate among white people in America today is 2.2%. The unemployment rate among Black people is 6.2%. And so while the economy is general, even with inflation, the economy is generally strong, except again for Black people. And then I've got another message about, so every day this week, we're putting up messages on social media platforms about how we can celebrate Juneteenth. And the next one coming out is to do research. You know, a lot of us know like miscellaneous things about our history, but we've never really gone deeply into understanding what it is. If you read the speech given by General Granger on June 19th, 1865, you will learn a lot about Juneteenth, and you don't have to get it from TikTok. You can just read it yourself. So those are the things that I'm doing, and I'm grateful for Martin, because Martin knows so much about technology. He's helping us amplify and distribute our message. While you were gone, Martin,
Yes,
I'm just
you
bringing them up.
started talking about Facebook and Cox. I
Right.
upgraded, so I'm in Lafayette, Louisiana, and I'll be meeting you in Dallas on Saturday, and I upgraded our internet to the one of the fastest speeds Cox's has. And as soon as you said Facebook,
Right.
I lost my my router.
Right. Lafayette, listen, Lafayette, Louisiana, for Black people, every Black person in America should really take a close look at Lafayette, Louisiana. One, it's right in the middle of the state. And two, the real estate there. Lafayette's very, very key because there's a former military base right next to Lafayette that's now an airport. Lafayette has a convention center nearby. Lafayette has a river. Lafayette is probably one of the most ripe communities in this country for redevelopment. And I was there. I gave a speech to the leaders there, and I told them if they don't do it, when the country wakes up and finds out about Lafayette and the hotel chains and the fast food restaurants, if the Black people in Lafayette don't move quickly, they're going to be moved out of Lafayette. So I'm glad you're there because it has all of the ingredients for greatness, but it doesn't have the infrastructure and it doesn't have the leadership. And I'm hoping to get back out there myself. I was going just before COVID hit, and that's on my list of places to go because Lafayette, Louisiana is a prime example of the kind of opportunities that exist for Black people, notwithstanding the surge in racism, notwithstanding all the challenges we have. There are pockets of opportunity, and Lafayette, Louisiana is one such pocket.
Yeah, I get that feeling as I walk. I'm a walker, so I walk the neighborhood right around the corner from us. We're right at the University of Louisiana, Lafayette, and literally across the street from it. And around the corner is a Black-owned restaurant called Heavenly Taste Too. So we've been supporting them. And the funny thing, the sister that was there yesterday said I gave her a tip, maybe like $5, and she was like, "You're the first person that tipped us in a year and a half." And I was like, "What the?" But that side of that is that everything around here, bars, the package stores are white owned. And so the fact that a Black business is right a block away from campus, and where we're staying at is I guess it's like a little garden apartment type of place, and they have the 2 bedrooms and 2 baths. And typically in Philadelphia, this would cost us $1,800 a month. And I think that they're, I think it's like $800 a month. so to your point,
right now, but I tell you, in 5 to 10 years,
it's a wrap.
I'm telling you, I've seen it over and over and over again.
No, I'm with you 100%. One of the things that I don't know if you went over, but I was curious about and wanted to hear, your thoughts on is that you brought up the grassroots efforts that folks are doing around the country to deal with either police reform or helping communities heal from violence. When I feel responsible as a person that's in media and know people in media, what do you think that as journalists or Black media people we can do better because I feel like we're not covering the stories. We're not like the white media. They may over-index on blood. If there's bloodshed, it's top of the story. But I feel like the Black media goes the opposite direction. Like if it's violence, we're not gonna cover it.
Yeah. Martin, and I hope you and I will get a real good chance to work on this week, this summer. Number one, I think Black media generally, the Association of Black Journalists, Black bloggers, I think Black media could do a better job coordinating messages for greater impact. Back in the 60s, the movement received the support of coordinated Black radio. And so in many ways, the only way Black people in Louisiana found out about the Black people in Tennessee and what they were doing was through Black radio stations. And there was a network of, we used to call them DJs back in those days. There was a network of Black DJs. And then we had a national Black news network that had syndicated news throughout the country. And so I just think that Black media, individuals, organizations could do a much better job coordinating to amplify important messages. That's number one. Then number two, here's the thing that drives me nuts. Um, I, on over Memorial Day weekend, I think there were 51 people shot in Chicago, right? But I'm telling you that some of the folks I'm going to introduce you to in Chicago, because of the work they do, it wasn't 102 people shot. So, we go into these neighborhoods and say, oh my God, there's so much violence. Given the poverty, given the hunger, given the mental health challenges, given the frustration, in many instances, and I'm not one to excuse violence at all. But what I'm saying is that while the mainstream media is going to cover the 3 people who got shot, I'm telling you there's somebody in that neighborhood whose work prevented it from being 30 people. And the more we can amplify the work and the messages of those people who are really doing the work, they're reducing violence. They're preventing people. There's a whole network of young people called violence interrupters. And what they do is when they hear a rumor that there's a beef between 2 groups, they monitor Facebook and look at it. They physically go into neighborhoods to intervene to try to bring about some reconciliation before there's an incident. So I would think Black media would, in addition to focusing on the blood, focus on and amplify the messages of the others, because they're people doing good work. And if more people knew about it, more people would emulate that behavior and try to do it. And then finally, the backstories. Every time there's what they call a mass shooting, and a white person is the shooter, the first thing they do is talk about, well, he comes from a broken home. His mother was in jail. He's on some kind of psychotic medicine. First thing they do is go to the backstory and find he was bullied when he was a child. When a Black person is the suspect, it's like they don't go into the backstory and figure out, well, what happened in this young person's life to bring about this level of anger. And so I think Black media can do a better job going into the backstory of people who are inflicting pain.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Um, we call it giving grace and space on Clubhouse. Um, I think that the grace that we give, today is Tupac Shakur's birthday, and a lot of people don't know what thug life means, and it literally means the hate you give, little ones f over everyone else. And so I think, and it's biblical, how we treat the folks that we consider to be the worst is how we'll treat ourselves. And having that love for another human being, and that grace to understand. And someone like Anton Lucky, I think we now have a more emotional intelligence, cultural intelligence, institutional intelligence, and historical intelligence, which I would say some of the, I don't say good things, but some of the positives that came out of this COVID period is that it's harder for people to ignore the historical references, and they can act like they don't know. Definitely it's a part of this country that refuses to be educated, but it's a lot more people today than I say 2001 that are educated as to the historical and cultural and institutional, how that affects people where they're at in the country. And then to your point about Black media, also I do feel like, because I was raised on Dan Rather and Walter Cronkite and Carl Rowan, and when I say Carl Rowan, most people don't have clue as who he is. But I was raised on those writers and those newsmen and newswomen, Carol Jenkins and Carol Martin rather, and some others who told you the context and the nuance to a news story.
Right.
And that's where I think that falls into the perspective and not since being making it a sensation. At the same time, I do feel that the other part of responsibility is to be in the community. And I think that's where I'm excited to work with you, because we'll be in 18 different cities on the actual ground, dealing with the actual people who are real influences. Might be a grandmother who feeds the block, or could be a teacher who just retired and taught, half of the freaking last 18 years, taught half of the city. But those folks connecting with the Black organizations already in the community, who are legacy organizations, and they may not be as connected as they once were, but just the media making sure that they're able to tell the neighborhood story.
Right.
There was an organization called DNA Info. A billionaire created it, and it broke stories in New York and Chicago, because he had 40 local reporters in New York, and he had 20 in Chicago. And then because it broke even, he wasn't interested in doing it anymore. He sold the assets to a group of the former employees in Chicago, and it's called Book Club. No, it's a Block Club Chicago now. But my point is saying is that when I looked at his model as a business and as a media outlet, I was like, wow, this is reminiscent of what newspaper used to be. He had a courthouse reporter. He had what do you call it, a public affairs beat. He had a reporter for every part of the community life. And I know we're not able to do that financially, but I do think that we could do a better job. There was a woman on Facebook for years. I always, when I think about her, I always try to find her again. I don't know if I can, but she was posting jobs for like maybe 3 years straight. All she did on Facebook was post jobs that were available in Chicago. That's all she did. And imagine if the Chicago Defender had incorporated her post somehow. So I think, as media, we have to do a better job at getting, and that's why I'm excited for Summer of Healing, because we're going to be on the ground dealing with people who actually live in that city and actually are affected by the problems that we face.
Yeah, and one thing I want you to think about two things, Martin. Thing number one is that Ariana Huffington and I were talking about doing something together before she did the Huffington Post. We ended up not doing what we talked about, but I watched the Huffington Post. What Ariana did with the Huffington Post was simply find people that had content and put it under that umbrella. In 98% of the time, they gave her the content for free, which is why many of them sued her, because when she sold it to AOL, she sold their content, which was free, and monetized it for herself.
Yeah.
But consider this. Suppose out of this summer, we get in each community 2 or 3 people creating content, and they agree that their content can have more impact collectively than individually. I mean, you got yourself a platform, a powerful platform, and churches don't do it. The best example of that in modern history is hip hop. Listen, hip hop did more to create impactful media and economic strength than any civil rights organization ever did. And I love civil rights. I'm speaking for the National NAACP convention, but the hip hop community monetized and messaged in ways that were unprecedented and still are. Hip hop produced 2 Black billionaires. So I want us, as we move around the country this summer, to consider what it would take to aggregate some of these young geniuses to create a collective impact, so that it's not one influencer, but an influential platform. And the second thing I want you to consider is having me on Clubhouse. I joined Clubhouse, but when I first got there, I was so intimidated. I went on Clubhouse one time, and I was almost afraid to say I'm here, because it just seems so unwieldy. It seems like the Wild West. So I don't mind coming into Clubhouse. It's like kind of like an old man going into the club. I'll come into the clubhouse with you, and you kind of guide the conversation and guide the dynamics, because I promise you, I am absolutely intimidated by Clubhouse.
Oh, well, we got you, Doc. That's not a problem. There are tons of folks that are you have your ability to show up and highlight others and definitely bring others to the table. That ability that you have um, is the same space that Clubhouse. You have a radio show. You've spoken on many convention stages. I don't know if you have a TED Talk yet or you've done a TED Talk, but I know there's a TED Talk in you. So that's really what Clubhouse is. And what you have, to your point of me bringing you in, is a guide to say, this club is a place for you to speak. This club is a place that will appreciate you, in conversation. That club, let's do that together, because that's a little raunchy or a little bit. But our clubs that we've created we call it safe stages, which means there's no mansplaining, no harassment, no cutting off somebody else. It's a very non-intimidating environment. But to your point, a lot of people can be intimidated. But definitely, and I know that the comments I got just from the live before this were that, whoa, we didn't even know that was happening. What's happening? Oh, we're gonna watch. So people are super, enthusiastic to get to know about this project. You're already a well-known factor, and the next generation of folks is where the clubhouses and even LinkedIn. I don't know if you know this. So what we have to do next is a LinkedIn live audio. So I just got that, and a lot of people are kind of getting that.
What are we on now, Martin? What?
We're on video. We're on LinkedIn. Well, so okay, that's a good point.
Live, right? What are we on?
Yeah, we're on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
We're on my personal profile on Facebook. We're on a Facebook profile that I've had since the days I met you on MySpace, called Urban Literary Review. That's a 13-year-old Facebook page that just has books and Black books. We're on the platform Your Black News on Facebook, and then we're on YouTube under Your Black News. So we're in broadcast to 5 places.
Okay. By the way, I know you're into books. Your family owns a bookstore. I've never heard you mention my books. I've got 10 books. I got 10 books, and on Amazon.com. Again, you just go to Amazon, type in Deforest Soaries, and they'll give you a list of all of my books.
Okay. Well, I think one of the things that I've been interested in do is because I see not Netscape. See how old I am. I see Netflix, Netflix, what all the same. But no, I see Netflix do a black book club and then fire the employees that work there. Mm-hmm. And then I was a part of initially Stephen Curry and his family have a book club and an app. Yeah. So I feel like we need, you and I need to have our book club.
Well, we should. I mean, when you say that, it took me all the way back to the 1970s. The 1960s, we had Motown Records, we had Stax Records, and we had Philly International Records. We had Sussex Records. And what happened was companies like CBS, what they did was they started signing all the Black artists. So they would hire in the 70s, they hired Black executives like Jim Tyrell over at CBS. Jim Tyrell brought Michael Jackson, brought Patti LaBelle. And as soon as the big white companies signed the Black artists, they fired all the Black executives. So you made me think of that when you talked about the book deal. And that's why.
Can I add one thing in there? I add one thing in there? I don't know if you know this. I didn't know this either. Because of our MySpace days, there was such knowledge being transferred back and forth. MySpace found us phenomenal things. There's a website called Pop Matters. They did a study. They did a investigation. Clive Davis went to Harvard and asked them to do a study, a white paper on the 3 labels you just talked about. He then took that study that said how you disrupt Black music. Yes, and he used that as a business model and transferred that around to all the other labels. So they said, let's give an artist.
I didn't know about the white paper but I know about Clive Davis. And, I interacted with the Black executives from Columbia, from, we call it Art Warner, RCA, Polygram Records,
Yeah, yeah.
all of those
Okay.
big record companies. What they did, first of all, was gobble up all the little white record companies, and then they stole the Black artists so that the Black companies didn't have any artists. In fact, let me just tell you this. I know we're out of time, but let me just tell you this. Um, uh, Stax Records was really hot. Isaac Hayes was on Stax Records.
Watch
Blue
that
Motions
the
was
concert.
Watch that, right? Okay.
Yeah,
Al
yeah.
Bell was so when Al Bell had Stax Records, the the music would come out of his studios, but back in those days they had to press albums. The big record companies owned the pressing plants.
Oh,
So Isaac Hayes would do a record on Stax Records. They'd send the tapes to be pressed into records, and CBS would just not press the records. So Isaac would get mad at Stax, and so the Black artists assumed that it was the Black record company that was holding up their product, and if no product came out, they couldn't work, and if they couldn't work, they couldn't eat. So the white companies, they it was like a squeeze play.
it was a monopoly.
So then the
They
white
had to
company
come
come
and
along
go.
and say to Isaac, "Look, man, you record for us. We'll give you a big advance, and your record will be out in 2 weeks."
Exactly.
So
Just like
I was
that.
there. And I promise you, very few people. Jesse Jackson, to his credit, back in those days, was trying his best to raise the issues, but not enough people really understood. And as consumers, we were primarily focused on the songs. We
Right.
weren't focused on the
The
system.
music. Right.
That's right.
Right. Right. Right.
So I mean, listen, I've been out here a long time, Martin. I know the rules of the game. I know how to fight and I know how to win. And my life's mission now is to help younger men and women who want to learn to fight, want to learn to win, who won't get discouraged when people hate on them, but will rather be motivated by the fact that if our ancestors could do what they did with all the crap they had to take, we certainly can do some things now for ourselves.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Dr. Soaries. And I would say that the first place for folks to go to follow along with content, like tomorrow night, you'll be giving Sister Lee a plaque. The first place to go is to Instagram and to follow, as you see the lower third there, y'all. Follow Join Heal
Right,
America, and then follow DB Soaries on Instagram. Those are two
right,
places. We can look for the hashtag Summer of Healing, Summer of Healing 22, and definitely join into the conversation. I'll be going live in Dallas as they do their walk, and then Sunday you're flying back to New Jersey for a concert or something. I don't have the full
right.
details on that, but
Prospect
that's
Park.
Sunday night. Where is
Yeah,
it?
there's a Juneteenth concert at Prospect Park, Brooklyn,
Oh, Prospect Park. Okay,
which
that's
is where
what's
I'm
up.
from. You're from Brooklyn. I'm from
Yeah,
Brooklyn.
yes, yes,
Uh,
yes,
and
yes.
I'll be speaking at the concert at around 7:30 Sunday night.
Okay, that's awesome. So we got a full pack Juneteenth weekend, and then it's Summer of Healing on, y'all. It's on and popping. 18 cities. Follow us along as we take this journey to really heal our communities. And thank you for giving us your time, Dr. Soares.
Thank you, Martin. See you later on.
All right, peace.
All right. Bye bye.